Hello, and welcome to The Philosopher and the Fool.
The Fool and the Philosopher. I'm currently doing an edit of a video, and I'm going through it and I realize, man, I do so little editing in my videos, because I'm trying to make a review of a video game, and I'm following Mandalore's guide to how to make a video review. And he says,
Just do a bunch of recording ahead of time.
do a bunch of, get all the recordings, put them together, then figure out what you're going to write and do audio for that.
Yeah. And when you're recording, just say, oh yeah, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about that.
I didn't even record any audio in there. I didn't bother.
Yeah.
Setting up the separate channels would probably actually make that a lot better.
Yeah, because then it's just kind of mindless.
I can delete those afterwards, so I should figure out how to do that.
I can try to show you quickly after.
Yeah, but basically, I record the whole game, actually. I record the whole game about twice. One time by just tapping, like, this is section
Is this the forest? Or no,
Valley.
Valley, yeah.
Yeah, and I played the whole game, because the whole game, like, once you get good at it, you can beat it in 2.5 hours. So, I have that. And then I broke it down, so I have 10 sections. Each one I only want to be 5 minutes long. And so, I'm trying to, like, compress these down to show each thing. And yeah, I've had to do research on it. I had to figure out the company that made it. It made me... This is interesting. Okay. You know the Wendigo, right?
Yeah.
So, what does the Wendigo look like? What do you think it looks like?
Well, it depends, because the sort of mythological Wendigo is like a person.
Yeah.
It's just a cannibal. But the more mainstream done by Days, what was it called? 7 Days to Die or whatever? Like that choose your own adventure story game.
Yeah.
They made it more of a Leshy, I think.
No, 7 Days to Die didn't do that. They did. They just had it be a possessed human.
Okay, they just had to be a
It's like a zombie.
Okay. But somewhere along the line, it definitely turned into a Leshy with like, the deer skull and the...
I found an article by someone who was very moralizing, but they did good research.
The Witcher, I think they're lower tier Leshy, they call Wendigos possibly or something.
Well, The Witcher is also at fault here. It goes deeper than this. It's quite interesting. So this person did some research, and I took their research and I did more of my own. So, 1910, a man wrote a book. His last name was Blackwood, called Wendigo.
Yeah, okay.
And it was misspelled. It had an E instead of an I. I mean, for translation, it doesn't really matter. But anyways, and he depicted the Wendigo with horns. But it still had a human face, a human body. It was like this demon.
So it's like a devil type.
Yeah, it was a demon that would steal people.
Like a Krampus figure, sort of.
Yeah, kind of. And it would steal them away and do stuff. Anyway, so different popular depictions of it went on and off throughout the years until Pathfinder had a Wendigo monster, which is one of the most popular depictions of it, which they took from a movie which had this centaur Wendigo with a deer head.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so their depiction is the Wendigo without feet. So its feet are burned off. It's got the deer head. It's got the horns. It's got all that stuff. So those influences came from the Leshen, or Leshy. However, the Leshy actually doesn't have a deer head either. The Leshy is a shape-shifting forest giant.
Who tickles people.
Some of them do. That's like the Russian version. It's all across Europe. It's actually quite similar in description to Bigfoot. And the First Nations mythology of Bigfoot, not our cryptid Bigfoot, but the actual mythical Bigfoot.
Yeah, or like a troll, I guess, from what you're saying. Because like a troll was a shapeshifter, right?
Yeah.
A troll wasn't a defined being. It was kind of a category of beings. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the Leshy...
Like a Grendel type figure.
The Leshy comes from Slavic mythology. So it's in Germany, Russia, all those places. And I think at a certain point it got combined with the Earl King and the Horned God. And then because they put antlers onto the Leshy and it's a forest spirit now, because it used to be a cannibal spirit of winter, greed, and cannibalism. That's what that's what the Wendigo was. So, but it became more of a forest spirit. Then at some point, the Nagalashi Skinwalker got grabbed and combined with the Wendigo.
Yeah.
And then the Europeans, I want to do art of the Wendigo. And they have their history in horned gods and deer men and the Earl King and these things. And so they've sort of all interbred. And so now both the Wendigo and the Leshy are these sort of malevolent forest spirits, the Wendigo being slightly more evil than the Leshy, with deer heads and antlers. When originally, Wendigos are just possessors. They just possess people. And the Leshy, the best drawings of him I've seen, he kind of looks like what Ent should look like, actually. Like, he's this big man with this greenish skin. He's got, like, tufts of moss on him. He's got, like, sticks in his hair. And he can just shapeshift into any animal.
I think I've seen some... I can't remember. There's an American creature called the Hide Behind, I believe. Yeah. Where it's like this shadow that hides behind you.
It looks like a bear. It's a shadowy bear.
But I think I've seen something with the Leshy kind of like that, with long fingers sort of coming up through roots in a tree or something. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different Leshies. Because it can turn into plants as well.
And they weren't evil, right? They were more trickster protector.
Yeah, if you go back to The Witcher, if you treat the forest right, it'll treat you right. If you treat the forest badly, it'll treat you badly.
It doesn't seem... When I played The Witcher, that thing attacked me first.
Yeah.
But and then the Naglushi, like the Skinwalker.
Yeah.
That's pure evil.
Yes.
Like that is an angel that refused to go to heaven or something, or wasn't able to. I can't remember how those work exactly. But those are pure evil. And so, yeah, it is interesting how they combined.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure... Well, Dresden Files already kind of did it with the half Naglushi. That's a good guy. I could see in the future like a good Skinwalker. I'm sure there's already some romance. If you ever really get interested in urban fantasy, like you're like, oh, I love the Dresden Files. All the urban fantasy besides Dresden Files is romance novels, basically. Yeah. And I'm sure there's already a Skinwalker one. But you can see that's something that happened now.
Yeah.
You can see that happen with the dragon. Mm-hmm. Like the European dragon, pure evil.
Yeah.
Chinese dragon, pure good. And when the cultures mix, and then the Aztec dragon, also good.
Yeah.
Or not the Aztec, the Mayan dragon, I guess. Mm-hmm. The Aztecs would have... I mean, it was good for the Aztecs too, but there is the enemy, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're doing tons of research, basically.
Yeah, so I've done research on... So the company that made Valley, their more famous game is Slender Man.
Oh, that's the same people.
Yes. Not the original Slender Man. They did the remake of Slender Man, which was quite popular, like the high
Slender
graphics.
Man was just a Gmod thing, I think?
It was made by like one guy, and Slender Man's weird. Slender Man's really weird. Because it is sort of like a creepypasta online posting. It originally comes from Cthulhu mythology.
Like Lovecraft?
Yeah, it comes from Lovecraft. So it doesn't come from him, but it comes from a work that was inspired by Lovecraft. And that's like the original, the tall man without a face who stalks people. And they just sort of took it from there and did it and expanded it out. Also, in researching Slender Man, this is something, it is creepy. Hmm? It's not... So, Slender Man is modern mythology, actually. And it's a demon. And I mean that in the old-fashioned sense of a demon.
Because he possessed those girls.
Yes, actually.
Who murdered that girl, yeah.
Yeah. And here's what was really weird. So after that...
you want to just give the background for that?
Yeah, so basically Slender Man became immensely popular in, I think it was 2012, 2015, that sort of period. When I was in high school. And there's two young girls who already probably had mental problems brewing in some way. And they kidnapped a girl and tortured her with a knife. And I don't know if they killed her or just almost killed her.
I think they killed her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was quite nasty. And when they're trying to figure out why they did that, because this was, I think it's like a 12-year-old girl and a 15-year-old girl or a 10-year-old girl who did this attack.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you doing it? It's like, oh, Slender Man told us to do it. And if we didn't, he would kill our families or take them from them. And there's actually a series of these. There was another attempted attack because people were told Slender Man to do it. People tried to kill their parent. Like, kids tried to kill their parents because of this. So those two girls who did the attacks, which are the big ones.
Oh, just a side I heard this. It was like, what's the creepiest thing your kid ever said to you? And this guy got skin cancer.
Yeah.
And he was telling his daughter, who was like 4, about like, okay, dad's got skin cancer, so it's, but he's trying to explain to her, he's like, what's cancer? He's like, well, it's like, okay, I've got like these bugs under my skin, basically, that are making me sick, and they might kill me, so I got to go to the hospital tomorrow, and don't worry, it'll be okay. And so he woke up in the middle of the night with his daughter standing over him with a knife, and she whispering to him, it's okay, Daddy, I'll cut the bugs out.
Yeah. So those two girls, they're both in mental asylums right now. Because they weren't tried as children, but basically they were held as children. They grew up, and through different plea deals and stuff. They're both in mental supplies. I think one for 30 years and one for 25 or something. But
yeah, that's if you plead insanity, you don't get a lesser sentence. I've heard.
Yeah.
Good in some ways. So, yeah.
And So, anyways, there's like a whole bunch more than them. That's the worst case. And there's a massive backlash of parents and stuff saying Slenderman is evil, we gotta ban this. And there's a backlash against the creepypasta forums on Something Awful. And there's sort of a countercultural movement within creepypasta and Something Awful and the mythos of Slenderman, which he became more malevolent. Or, sorry, not ambivalent.
Oh, so he became gooder.
Yeah, he became more ambivalent.
Okay. Benevolent, even.
Yeah, benevolent, sorry, that's it. He became more benevolent. So, he would stalk bad people, he would attack bad people. If a little girl got lost in the woods, he'd, like, take her hand and walk her out and then disappear.
Oh.
And they gave him a daughter who's, like, this girl covered in bandages because people attacked her, and so he adopted her and takes care of her.
Does this sound like to you like some sort of MK Ultra, like, oh, okay, it worked, it went too far, let's see if we can...
Well, so... I'm getting there, actually. I'm
Okay.
getting there slightly. It's not quite MK Ultra, but... So he became not an evil spirit, basically. But those two girls, they were possessed. In the most real sense of what possession means, they were possessed by Slenderman. And so I was thinking about this. And I think demons are real. Because, like, things happen in the past. People were possessed by a demon. That's why they carried out the attack. There's exorcists, like, in modern day and most of the past, that deal with possessions. And it's people who are possessed by demons in some way. They carry out horrible things. And so you could even say if someone's possessed by ideology, and cults possess people. But I think there's actually, like, what we say is demons. It might be a spiritual thing, it might not be. But there's a mental thing in humans that lets certain people get possessed by demons, like those two girls were. And depending on what kind of demon it is, it can make you do really horrible things, because you're basically a person who's saying they're ready for a demon to go into your brain. And then it's like, well, this demon wants you to kill people.
Yeah, that was...
And so in the medieval times, right, it's going to be Lucifer that possesses you, and he's the prince of evil. He is the lord of pride.
Now it's Slenderman.
Yeah, so Slenderman would possess you.
Yeah, well, ideas as well. Like, ideas, I think Dawkins, that's a meme he basically was saying was a virus, right?
Yeah.
It's a idea virus. And... yeah, if it's a powerful enough idea, it can possess you. Like, look at World War II, for instance. Yeah. Or look at... I think the most powerful idea in our lifetime is either socialism or Islam. They are both incredibly effective and incredibly powerful. It's amazing how socialism has... Like, Islam, I think, you look at Islam and you're like, you know, it's improved a lot of people's lives, and sure, it's caused wars, but everything causes wars. People will fight about everything. But you look at socialism, and you're okay. This has destroyed every single country that has ever tried it, ever. And the allure is too strong. People keep going back to it over and over and over and over. And countries that you'd think would never fall, that once fought against socialism, like the UK and France, they're starting to look at it. And I don't know if they'll go. Like, it's hard to say how far you have to go to fall for it. But it's like they have, like France right now, they have 3 big parties, and one of them is a socialist party. And it's like their second biggest party right now. And it's like, it's powerful. It's incredible. And the UK, I don't think Labour is socialist, but their former leader was a socialist.
Yeah.
And they're probably not going to do socialist things, but they keep leaning that way.
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful demon.
Yeah, going back to a smaller scale demon, because what made me think about this more, when I was reading that, they had no influence until Slenderman got to them. Slenderman changed. The doctors who, the social contagion of bulimia.
Oh, yeah, like we were talking about a few episodes ago.
Yeah, it's like that's a demonic possession of the spirit of famine or something.
Yeah, I wonder it makes me want a time machine for so many things, eh? But with those girls that murder that girl, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you go back in time and you make sure Slenderman doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Do they murder the girl for Satan or the laughing ghost from Scooby-Doo, or, you know, like...
They might.
Were they going to do it no matter what, and they just needed... Maybe they didn't even need a catalyst. Maybe they just were going to blame whatever idea was at the center of their mind at the time.
I think...
Like, bullies are going to bully and they'll just find a justification.
That might be. I think that's some cases, but I think in other cases, it's going to be whatever demon's most powerful.
I think
is going to take your mind. Like, I actually do think whatever demons... Like, there are certain people, like I said, who are actually ripe for possession. Like, people who, I start getting bulimia. They are possessed by that spirit because it's the powerful one that gets them. I feel like if there's... I don't know, if for some reason, let's say, the spirit of Michael became very culturally popular.
Yeah.
And he's like everywhere. There's memes of Michael, the archangel. I feel like that might possess some people, and those people might be possessed.
Do you think those girls that murdered that girl, right? Do you think they would suddenly become the right arm of God? Or like, sorry, that's Gabriel. Well, I guess that's Michael. They would become who is like God, right? They would, well, I guess it's meant to be a question. They would become this spirit. Like, do you think the same people could be good or evil with this possession? Or do you think that good people would start attributing their goodness to the Archangel Michael instead of attributing their goodness to, I just got up, didn't know what I did, or attributing their goodness to Allah, or attributing their goodness to whatever? Like,
I'm going to give you the lame answer. I think it's both.
Like, depending on the person? Or
Yeah, I think there are people who can only be possessed by evil spirits. I think there are people probably who can only be possessed by good. And I think there's people who can just be possessed.
I was actually his name isn't Erwin Schnitzel, but it's something like that. From the banality of evil. I don't know if you heard about this guy, but he was a Nazi. I was just talking to someone about this, actually. He was a Nazi who was he escaped after World War II to Argentina.
Is this the guy who basically claimed to have done a bunch of Nazi things because he wanted to fit in?
Yeah, and then the Mossad kidnapped him, and he was put on trial long after the war, and they asked him, like, why were you doing all this stuff? And he's like, because everyone was doing it. And it wasn't an excuse. That was his reason. He was like, I wanted to be one of the bros.
Yeah.
It's like, and they looked at his life history, and he would either spend his time doing nothing or being a part of a team or a club.
Yeah.
Like, he was part of the Boy Scouts, and he loved the Boy Scouts, and then he just sat around, and then he was like, oh, I'm in the tennis club now, and I just love tennis. And then, oh, in the Nazi party, I love being a Nazi. Yeah. He just needed a club to be in. And I was arguing with a guy. I think if you put this guy... I was actually arguing with a guy with a history degree. But I was like, if you put this guy... They didn't need to execute this guy. They could have put him in the Marines, like the American Marines, and he would have just been a Marine.
I think so.
And what my friend said, which I agree with, though, is someone that is that, easy to flip-flop, maybe you should execute him anyways, because he's a danger to society just existing. And it's like, that's a harsh thing to say, but, it's like... I think there is an argument there for this guy is just a danger to society.
Yeah.
Now, should you kill all dangers to society? Maybe not, but
he's
already done something.
Yeah, there's that argument of if you look at statistics of crimes, if you want to be proactive about it, you arrest all men from age 16 to about 30, and then crime would drop.
And if you want to arrest less people, then you start going by races. But then if you want to arrest even... what would you call it? A better spread of people. You don't do it by race, you do it by wealth.
Yeah.
Because poor people tend to do more crimes. Now, there's actually a debate there in sociology, which is, do poor people commit crimes, or does committing crimes make you poor? And it's not, there's an obvious answer. There's actually a debate there. And I don't know, the people I respect more are actually on the side of doing crimes makes you poor. Because you destroy your society around you, basically, and then that brings everyone down. Which, for example, Brazil, or Venezuela.
Yeah.
These two countries should be very rich. They have tons of stuff, and they're just this crab bucket spiral downwards.
Yeah.
But it makes more intuitive sense that being poor wants you to do crime, and I think there's also a certain faith in humanity. Like, you like to think that people would only commit crime if they were desperate, but even if that is the reason for doing crime, there's still, like, the reason we have all these soup kitchens and whatnot, I think in part it's soft power. It's so that you don't turn to crime and bring society down.
Yeah.
You go to this outlet that we've made so that you can get these bare minimums so that you don't destroy society.
Well, there's been studies on this for a very long time. This is also related to soup kitchens. Unfortunately, a lot of towns actually fail at this, and it's because it's really hard to do it properly. But you shouldn't have shelters, like homeless shelters. You should have separate buildings spread out across the city, which maybe have like 10 people at them at most in each one.
I can see that, yeah.
And the data is there on that. Basically, if you have a bunch of homeless people concentrated in one area, they feed off each other, much like the cases of like having a bunch of bad children together. You send them to a reform camp, it just makes them all worse.
Well, I think what also could happen, like
it's the same thing with rehab.
I used to walk by, back when I was about 15, I had to walk by a homeless shelter every day to get to school.
Yeah.
Because I was going to that special program in downtown.
Yeah.
And so I had to walk by this homeless shelter every day. And it was always the same, like, I don't know, maybe 10 people. So it wasn't like a lot of people, right? There isn't many homeless people here because they can't survive here. It's too cold.
Yeah.
But there was about 10 people there. And they're all smoking. They're all loud in the morning. They're all drinking. And now there's other homeless people around. But I imagine, like, I was thinking, I thought at the time, if I was ever desperate and in need, I would be scared to go to the soup kitchen. I'd be scared to go to the food bank because the people that hang around the food bank are scary people.
Yeah.
Like some of them, there was that guy we met outside that hotel who might have been homeless or might have just been hungry and wanted lunch, who I gave money to that one time.
Yeah.
And like he was like, you know, you could go hang out with him, no problem. But the people that kind of camp the the soup kitchen are scary.
Yeah.
And so if you're homeless, you're like, well, I don't want to go there. And so maybe it's easier just to steal an apple from the store when nobody's looking. It's like, I don't want to have to deal with that mess. I might get my ear torn off or something.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of the psychology of it all.
And also it's, I think it's partly a budget thing, right? But it was like the ugliest building in town. Like, and it's partly because you have a bunch of people smoking outside of it all day.
Yeah.
But also, it's like so depressing. Like, can't you have, like if you have a happy place, it might get run down, right?
Yeah.
And bright colors aren't necessarily, but it was like this gray, windowless, it looked like a garage. It was depressed. They actually changed the shelter to this very modern looking building. Looks like an apartment now, but
it still has the same problems.
But and I guess it's much nicer looking, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. But it's also, it's still kind of brutalist. Like it's got like fake wood paneling on it, so it's nicer looking.
And like, it's always the case. Like, it's never not been the case. Where it's located, the shops and stuff around it get devastated.
Yeah, they just die. And then the only shops that move in are like the really dodgy ones, like the pawn shops and the porn shops, and then it turns into this slum of a town, which is interesting because.
And then the slum of the town creates more homeless people.
Well, because where this homeless shelter was located, though, was right across from a school, and between that school and another school. So it was definitely, and that section of town, walking through it every day, you've got this boarded up pawn shop next to a sex shop, and then you've got the homeless shelter, and then you've got the secondhand bookstore that's very nice.
And a very nice bakery nearby.
Yeah, but it was, and then this really dingy movie theater.
Yeah,
it was like this blighted section that like schools surrounded.
Yeah.
And that was where it was the slowest point of traffic in town as well.
Yeah,
because there's a school there, so everyone had to stop, and so everyone passes through there like 15 kilometers an hour every day.
Yeah,
bumper to bumper traffic, and they have. I say they have to see this, like you should hide it out of the way, but it's more like depressing everyone's spirit, I think. And plus, I don't know, I'm not sure about this. You go to soup kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to be, everyone has to see you so that you still are human, or do you want to just be kind of out of the way, tucked, but you feel isolated from society then, but at least you can kind of do it on your own and you're in private, and I'm not sure how you want to do that.
I think it was put there to shove it in people's faces. That was part of the planning of why it was put there, and I've heard people say that's why it's there. So I don't know about the plan, but people say, oh, it's there and people see it.
Yeah.
It has been there for 15 years.
And nothing's happened.
Yeah. I think that's kind of
it's gotten worse.
Really. A case in study of it didn't work.
The other thing, there's clearly solutions. I'm not saying they're good ones, but there's clearly solutions we're not willing to take, right? Because Japan has like 5,000 homeless people.
It's got more than that. A lot of Japanese people have pride and they don't admit they're homeless. Like there's internet cafe sort of things, and people will have a full-time job and they sleep in there and they don't say they're homeless and they're working full-time, so they're not unemployed. And
right, but that, I think that's different from you see someone smoking and drinking 24/7.
Yeah.
Versus you walk around like if I lived in Tokyo, I would send my 8-year-old daughter just walking like. Traffic, homeless people can like. I would feel safe. It's like oh sure, it's only 8 p.m. It's only 8 at night. Yeah, go ahead, walk to your friend's house. Like so, Tokyo felt like the safest city.
Here's some
ever.
crime statistics about Japan, and this is the whole of Japan. So, 95% of cases are solved in Japan. That's including murder and like all crimes. 95% of them they figure it out. I think it's 98% of convictions go to jail. If you are brought to court saying you committed a crime, you have a 98% chance of going to jail.
Well,
in Japan.
that's the thing I've heard about Japan's legal system, is that it's extremely harsh.
Yeah.
Like, there's numerous cases of people appealing the death penalty.
Yeah.
Like, they're saying, I don't deserve death penalty, I'm innocent, or, no, you should give me 10 years, not death penalty.
Yeah.
And their court date is placed after their execution date. And so they get executed before they get to go to court for their appeal.
Yeah.
And so you have this, as long as the system never messes up, it's a beautiful country. But if there's an accidental injustice and you get caught in the gears, which happens occasionally. Like Japan probably has, 1 in 100,000 people just having their lives destroyed for no fault of their own. Because of their really harsh legal system. And I'm sure Salvador now has something similar. Where they just arrested like 10% of the male population or whatever it was. I don't know if it was that high, but
if you have a tattoo, you get arrested.
Yeah, basically. And it makes a very nice society as long as you don't get caught up in it. And that's that one of those freedom versus safety things, right? And I don't like the... It is weird, though, that... like, I'll give the Salvadori guy, right? Like, he's a far left dude, right? Like, the leader of Salvador. Like, he's a socialist type character. He's not quite a socialist, I think, but he's very far left. But that makes sense. Like, left wing is about, well, nowadays, it's about safety, right? So it makes sense. Like, okay, I want safety, so we have a social security net, and we lock up everyone that looks like they might be a criminal. But it gets really weird in a lot of the West, where you have the people pushing for helping out homeless encampments and giving them drugs and prison reform, are the same people saying but children might be upset, or we need social security, we need, like, you think it'd be the right wing that was really, and the right wing is pushing for locking up all these people and having insane asylums again, right? But that's a safety thing. That's the right way going, I'm scared, I can't take care of myself. Because if you think you can if you think your society's full of heroes who can take care of themselves, like, I'm trying to think, the ideal would be the American West, like the Old West, right? Like the cowboys. That was the ultimate free society. Where people were strong and they took care of themselves.
And you all ruined it?
Women. But there was also a lot of people dying senselessly in fights. But they were free. But it's weird, because if you go to the extreme safety of Salvador, it's extreme safety of Salvador or Japan, suddenly you get people randomly dying again. But they're fighting the government, which is this massive machine you can't hope to stand against. Now, I'm curious, because Scandinavia, they always seem to do everything right. And I think the solution is just being incredibly rich. But like Finland, was it 2006 they had 0% crime rate? And they don't, like, lock you up if you look at something. Like, they're just, I don't know.
Or Norway's highest security prison.
It's just
an island.
Little island. Little pleasant island. I think the one thing Finland does, and I can see why other countries don't do it, is their crimes are proportionate to your standing. So if you're like a millionaire and you get a speeding ticket, you get like $100,000 speeding ticket. And I could see, like, that's very hard to get passed legally, because those people have the money to not let that happen. So I don't know how Finland got away with that, but that's probably what partly helps Finland, is their laws don't allow for corruption in the same way, in some ways.
It could also be the people there. Part of that, like their culture, what they have.
But I think also being rich helps a lot. But you compare Argentina to Norway, which are almost identical countries in terms of they made a ton of money from oil. And they were doing amazing around the same time. And then you look at what happened. And Argentina went socialist, and Norway didn't go socialist. They created a bunch of social programs. And Norway just didn't spend all their money either. They invested in a bunch of different things, and Norway has a huge reserve of money that they slowly dole out to their citizens. It'd be interesting. It's going to be a long time before we see if Norway actually worked or not, basically, because they might run out of money, because they're sitting on all the windfall they made in the past. But Dubai is trying to do that right now. Like they're trying to say, this is where you do business. This is where everyone comes. And I don't know what Dubai's legal law stuff is like.
Dubai is strange.
But going back to your doing a bunch of research. I think this is something I've noticed. There are YouTubers. There's a lot of video essayists, right? They have these great big long videos that people say, this was a 3-hour long video. It's so informative. And I think what you're you were probably already aware of this, but I just want to point out the contrast where you could have sat down and just done a recording and said, I like The Forest. The Forest is a game, and you do, like you could have done something like that, right? But you're researching this company, you're researching where they got the inspiration for the Wendigo and for and the Leshy and what other games they did, and Slenderman.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot with video essays, where you have people who talk about an idea, and they think all a video essayist does is write an essay like you do in high school, and then they read it. And they don't realize that the thing that makes the great video essayists great is they know their stuff.
And they also know when to pause when speaking.
But I mean, good intonation is good. But I think there is a huge difference between not even just knowing their stuff, right? You can know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You can have a huge corpus of knowledge in your brain, but not have the specifics nailed down in the moment. And so actually having them on hand, refreshing yourself, like there's a huge difference between me saying communism is bad, I read the Communist Manifesto and it's bad, versus me saying the Communist Manifesto is bad. Near the end of the book, there's a section where it talks about women. And then I quote that section, and it says, women will be shared under communism. And Marx's response to that is, well, women are already shared under liberalism, so it doesn't make a difference. Which is, it's like, people are worried that we're going to be sharing women under communism, but we're already sharing women. Gotcha. It's like, oh yeah, that was me going off the top of my head, sort of fast and loose. And it doesn't give you as in-depth, it's almost, that was a bit better because I gave a specific example, but it's still this sort of nebulous amorphous, I guess was the word I was looking for, false knowledge. It's like you're filling air. It's like a filibuster almost.
Yeah.
Versus a tight essay where you're saying this is this and this and this is this.
Well, yeah. What cool things as well is you can actually find stuff by research, because you might think you know something. So
that's exactly it.
In the game Valley, the military has a whole bunch of different factories and weapons they're developing, and they have Soma, which is, they have the Soma factory. And I was like, okay, what do they mean by Soma? What is Soma?
Sleep?
Well, so sleep, or the food of the gods, or Brave New World Soma, which is the drug everyone takes. I was like, okay, that's probably what it means. And I was doing more research on a different thing, which is the Brawmaster Bomb. And it's like, hey, what's Brawmaster? And I couldn't actually find anything on it. I was like, okay. And then there was... No, sorry, I could find the Brawmaster Bomb, that's right. And I was like, okay, what's Brawmaster Bomb? And it's a weapon that Shiva wields, and it can destroy the world. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I found this different word, which was that I was uncertain of what it meant. And the Brawmaster is this kind of super weapon, and there's a lot of them in Indian Hindu mythology. And so that's a different word that's used there. So I went, all right, Soma, Hindu mythology. It's the goddess of life and nature and healing. And
that fits
It fits it perfectly, because they're harvesting these magic orbs that produce a ridiculous amount of power, and these orbs are literal life force of the valley. But it's confusing me, because they have all these Hindu things, and then they have the Thanatos canon. And there is only one Thanatos. The black-winged god of death. And then they also have Wendigos, and they have the cannibal giants from different mythology. So
I think a great example when it comes to game reviews, actually, is, I don't know if you've seen, I think Mandalore does a good job at this, and of course Total Biscuit did, but there's some other reviewers out there who will say, oh yeah, I like this game, it's pretty good, it feels like the controls feel really good, like let's say they're talking about the Doom 2016. It feels really good, the music's amazing, it feels good to move around, I like the enemy variety, and that's the review, right?
Yeah.
And it can go on for an hour where they're saying stuff like that. Whereas Total Biscuit, when he would start his reviews, he'd say, okay, this is made by Bethesda, but it's made by their secondary team, who is located in Austin, and they specialize in this. And the controls feel really good because there is a 13 millisecond delay, and now we'll look at the menu. Okay, there's no FOV sliders here, so that's unfortunate, but if you do this, you can counteract that with this AA processing. And he basically, he knew why something felt good. He didn't just say, oh, it feels good. He knew why it felt good. He knew who the people were that made it, why they made it, how they made it. And I think that difference is creating something real versus doing what I do half the time on the podcast, which is just sort of sort of spewing out these ideas based on what I think I know about things. Or no, yeah, no, I think that's
Well,
fair.
I don't think I'll be able to total biscuit with this
Well,
review.
yeah, no, I'm not. You can't hold anyone to total. Right, everyone's got to do like Mandalore and Seth. They're very entertaining, right?
Yeah.
And your stuff, you go into the mythology aspect there, and with your Minecraft reviews, of course, it's very quick, snappy.
Yeah.
Like, it's not Direwolf where he'll tell you about every single detail of the mod over the course of like 6 years, and you forget half of it. Your stuff is like, okay, I'll just sit down and boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And so everyone's got to put their own spin on it, right?
Yeah.
And if anyone tries to beat Total Biscuit out of his own game, they're gonna fail.
There's one of the interesting things about Valley, which I realized. I think this is probably why the game isn't popular, but everyone who plays it thinks the game should be popular. And will be my review on the music section, which is the music in Valley is amazing. And why it's amazing is it's reactive music. So while you're going along, the music will build up, and then once you complete an event, the music will trigger. And by realizing that this company made Slender Man, they are a horror game company. That is where they sort of got their teeth in. They're really good at cinematics. That is what they're good at. And so you can make cinematic music attached to a game. Most cinematic music is actually garbage. And the thing about Valley's music is it's good in the moment, but you won't remember it. You won't go, oh, Valley music, yeah, it goes like this. Whereas more it's like, dun, 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 dun. Like, you know the songs. Or Fields of Arskelga. Like, you know that song. Whereas the music in Valley, it actually suffers from being cinematic. Because you're going to be running down a thing, and then you take the jump, and that's when the music swells. And so you're only going to think about the jump and the swelling. You're not actually ever going to think about the music. And the music's like good, but it's not amazing. It's just, it feels amazing because it reacts with the game.
Because it's reactive.
Yeah.
You flee, my dreams come the morning. Berries tart, lilacs sweet, listen.
Yeah.
That's the Wolfenstorm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know those songs, and they're actual good music.
Yeah, the thing about the Wolfenstorm, though, actually, is it adds to the game in that it's part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not music that you listen to while you're playing the game. No. As you said.
So there's that one there, but then Fields of Arskelga.
Yeah, you actually...
And the Witcher combat song, the...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those ones work quite well.
Yeah, or you think about, we'll go to the master of all music, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 and 2.
Yeah, with a... See, now here is the spewing versus the Paul Anthony Romero, right? Yeah. So we could just... the Heroes of Might and Magic, it's got the way better music. Yeah. But if we want the video essay, we go, Paul Anthony Romero.
Yeah.
Child prodigy. He's got...
Yeah, and he put that together. A lot of them are based on other songs that he grew up loving. You can find the sound effects and songs related to things. And knowing about them, how they're made, like basically all the, it's a weird instrument because you have no idea what it is, but one of the main undertones to all the songs, especially number 2, is a saxophone. And that's played by his husband. And it's a saxophone like you've never heard a saxophone before. I think the saxophone...
Is Brock Summers... Hopefully Romero doesn't listen to this, but is Brock Summers his husband, or... This is going to sound weird. Are they friends? Like, I mean, obviously they're partners, right?
Yeah.
But... I don't know if they actually live together or what, because whenever he goes on tour with Brock Summers, he gets so excited. He's like, I'll get to see Brock Summers and we'll be on stage together. But maybe that's just how he is.
I think he's a very joyful man.
Or maybe, but I almost wonder, like, are they estranged lovers and he never gets to see him except when Brock Summers is forced to go on these tours, and so he can sort of be like, I get to see him again, and it's this creepy stalker thing.
I think Romero's a very joyful man.
He seems like a really cool dude. I don't want to call him a creepy stalker.
Yeah, but... when you hear saxophone played...
And even, like, it could even be... Let's say they did separate. Yeah. Heaven forbid. I hope not. But let's say they did. They could still be really good friends. Yeah. And he's just happy to see him.
Yeah. The saxophone... When you hear it played like that, it's awesome. And you're like, why do the people play saxophone the way they played when it can be played like this?
Yeah. Yeah, no... And he's... That was a weird thing. I came across Brock Summers... when I was looking up something, nothing to do with Heroes of Might and Magic, about dentistry, because he's like a dentist or something, right? Or he's like a plastic surgeon. I can't remember what he is, but he's a doctor. Like he's like a medical doctor. And so I was looking something up, and it was like, oh yeah, Dr. Brock Summers said this at this testimony in this court case or something. I was like, wait, what?
There was even further knowledge that's not needed that might detract from the video essay.
What, you think so? There can never be too many facts. That's why my second Here's My Magic video has 15 minutes more dialogue than footage. Because I go on this massive tangent about Harry Potter for like half an hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the tangent on the Wendigo thing, going to that research of... Because they don't have the deer head, but they do depict a horned Wendigo. And I just have to bring that up.
Yeah, well, I think there's side paths that add to the story, and then there's branches off branches where you just want to talk about something that's on your mind and it's cool.
Well, it's also when the game was made was when Wendigos got very
you said the Wendigos got popular like in the 20s with that book, right? And
so
speaking of the 20s, Hitler, that's the kind of thing where you're going off track.
It wasn't the 20s when it got popular. The book was published in 1910.
Right.
But the game...
So Hitler would have been in his 20s.
Valley came out in 2015, I believe.
Which would be
and Wendigos were popular.
60 years after Hitler's death. So speaking of it...
So I get this ad.
Yeah.
Which it's this guy saying, what you need to do is you need to make a digital book for your website or your podcast, whatever it is you do. So use this AI tool. And it'll take your blog, it'll take all of your works, and it'll turn it into a digital book. And this is great for people knowing what you're about. You can sell it online. So I was thinking, if we put our podcast into that thing, it would go Advanced Staircase, Sandwich, Hitler's, the Jews.
Yeah. And then...
And video games.
Throw in some video games. And then maybe a bit of just depressing nihilism somewhere in there. And then arguments about the nature of belief.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think Hitler believed in infinite sandwiches?
I think he's too much of a nihilist for that.
There we go. Boom. Podcast right there. But I think that that's the difference between... I don't know if you saw the debacle with that In Praise of Shadows guy where he just called a bunch of... He's a horror movie reviewer on YouTube. Yeah. And he called a bunch of...
He called Wendigo.
Oh, yeah, he called Wendigoon.
Yeah, Wendigoon.
He called that terrible Wendigoon channel. No offense to Wendigoon. I don't like your channel. I don't like your style. Sorry. It doesn't work for me. But Wendigoon is like Mahutar and Moist Critical, where they're massively popular for taking like 15 minutes to say 2 minutes worth of stuff. And I guess some people just like hanging out with a cool guy who with poor facial hygiene. Like all of those guys need to shave.
Doesn't Wendigoon...
I shouldn't talk, but...
Actually do sort of video essays as well?
Yeah, he does. But they could be about a quarter the length. Like he does a lot of research into things, but I think his videos are way too long. He speaks too slow. I don't like his tone of voice.
He doesn't have the polish of Bob Gimlin.
He doesn't have Bob Gimlin's a storyteller more than anything.
And he creeps you out.
Sometimes I actually wonder if Bob Gimlin makes everything up. Because, well, the stories have a similar tone to them, but they're so unique that if he is making them up, he's a genius storyteller.
I think,
But he might just be taking the stories he's given and then putting his spin on them.
I think he does that partly, but the history podcaster.
Dan Carlin.
How he's really good at telling stories.
Yeah.
And he can't read fiction, and like the stories are so ridiculous they can't be anything but real.
Yeah.
It's sort of... Bob Gimlin's storytelling is so compelling, and he gets probably thousands of people, if not thousands, then hundreds of people trying to give him stories, and he's very selective and careful about which ones he chooses and which ones can be the most compelling.
Just choose the good ones.
Yeah. And so with that plus his ability, I think there's a mix of he chooses the good ones, and he also tells the ones that actually can have a story told with them, and the story is partly what makes them good.
Did you see Michael Malice on Joe Rogan recently?
No.
Joe Rogan was saying, there's a YouTuber I watch, I'm going to get him on really soon, and he did this great video about this giant crocodile. So I'm pretty sure Bob Gimlin's coming on.
That would be the weirdest mix of energy, if that is the case.
Well, hopefully Joe Rogan smokes something crazy so his eyes look as crazy as Bob Gimlin's.
The latest Joe Rogan-Jordan Peterson interaction, I was wondering what Joe was on when they had it, because Joe went slightly off the rails.
Bob Gimlin for a while, whenever someone donated him money, he would give them a personalized thank you video.
Yeah.
And he messed it up so you could see them to start with, right? And they're very sweet. Like, he's just like, people give him $2 and he makes a whole video for them. He's like, oh, thank you so much. It means so much to me, right? Like, it was awesome. But man, he's creepy looking.
He also, just the way he talks is creepy. No offense to him.
Yeah. But like, I think I'd love to hang out with him. And I don't think he's actually a creepy guy, but he's got this stare. That's like, yeah. It could just be the way he films as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the angle you have your camera at really informs how you appear.
So one of the things that...
Oh yeah, but going back to In Praise of Shadows.
Yeah.
In this... Okay, I'll wrap it up. Okay.
Go to Praise of Hell, and then this will fall into this whole overarching discussion we've had, I think.
So with In Praise of Shadows, he did this hit piece on Wendigoon and a bunch of other YouTubers, calling them all far-right lunatics.
Yeah.
And I watched some of his...
Wasn't Internet Historian a part of them?
Might have been. But I watched some of his video review stuff.
Yeah.
And it's very much what I was talking about, where he does... You know, he obviously loves the films, and he watches them a lot. But he's not drawing in... Like, someone like ContraPoints. I don't agree with her, but she quotes, like, okay, this bit of literature says this, and this... He does a lot of quoting, but it's kind of at random. He doesn't understand the point of the quotation.
Doesn't understand the point of the quote, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, communism is good because Marx said the mean wage of a laborer is the minimum wage. That's not the part about communism being good, you know, stuff like that. And I've seen, and I think there's a lot of YouTubers like that. They're the ones that never quite break through, and they're
like me.
Well, no, you're doing the research, but they're the ones that don't actually. It's a lot. They don't realize that you actually have to. I don't want to say a lot of work because I hear people talk about it takes hard work, it takes hard work, it takes hard work, and what I think of when something takes hard work is like they're doing more work than I did to make that 1.5 hour long video where I spent 200 hours editing it.
Yeah.
Where unless they're let me know, that's not what's going on. Or if, like a Soviet Womble. That's not what's going on. When they say hard work, they mean sitting down and getting it done. Yeah. That's what hard work means. And it means putting in, it means unpleasant work. That's what people mean when people say you got to just grind down and knuckle down and do hard work. They actually mean you have to do unpleasant work. And that is the thing I think these people that don't break through aren't doing. They're not doing the, okay, well, I could research this just to make sure, but I don't want to because that wouldn't be fun and it's boring. That's where the hard work in quotation marks comes in, and that's what they're not doing, and that's why they're not breaking through. And so, like, I think our episodes that are most popular on this podcast, well, it's a bit random, but I think they tend to be the ones where we've actually, like, we've researched Taleson, or we're reading the Communist Manifesto word for word. I don't know if that one got any views at all, but I think where we do best is where we know we have our teeth sunk into something at the moment. We sat down and we read the boring. It doesn't have to be miserable, but it's like you can't operate off vibes forever.
Yeah, well, so one of the things with
we've got big brains, we can run off fumes for a long time. But if you know,
well, so when it comes to YouTube guide videos, like especially Minecraft, I get really annoyed.
Yeah. So actually, I want to just your Minecraft videos. That's you knuckling down and doing the work. Yeah. Like there is no fat in them. That is you actually sitting down, and you might not even find it unpleasant, but that is you actually doing the extra bit where you say, okay, this is how it works, not just you playing it and going, and I think if you do, you're actually going boom, 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 boom.
Your teeth are so much cutting going on as well.
Yeah, but it's not just about the editing and how much time you spent on it. It's about you fully understand the material before you expound on it, rather than a first impression video. Like first impressions are fine, but it's not a first impression video that you call a guide.
Yeah.
And you say, I think if you do this, this works, and I remember this is like that's a different story altogether. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I get annoyed when I try to look up. I was playing this mod pack. It was with a server with some friends, and it's called Cisco's RPG or MMO or whatever. And it's actually like an MMO of you have to level up and grind. And I realized at a point I was addicted to it and I wasn't having fun with it. It was like the little MMO addiction sort of thing. And so I just uninstalled the mod pack and stopped going on that server. But I was trying to look up guides of how can I beat this boss? How can I do this thing? And there's these videos online of people like, oh, I'm going through to get this level. I'm like, it's their first impression just going through it. Or I was trying to figure out how certain mods in it worked. And these are mods without guidebooks, because guidebooks are usually the people document so-so. But like, these don't have guidebooks, so I'm trying to look it up. And it's like, I don't want to watch people's YouTube videos on it. I want to read it. Because I can read faster than you can get it out in a video for me. Because there's a reason why I started making video guides.
But yeah.
And it's because most people's guides aren't useful to me. They might be a good guide for a lot of people, but they aren't useful to me, so I make guides that I could use.
You know what's interesting about... I don't want just to make this all about praising you, but you know, you deserve a bit of praise here. With your Minecraft video guides, right? Yeah. Almost always I prefer a written guide to a video guide, because written guides get to the point and you're done, right? And video guides take twice as long to get to the point, right? Your video guides are one of the few video guides out there where it's actually like, yeah, this will actually teach me what I need to know, because you're like boom, 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 boom. And it's easy to follow. You're actually getting more information out per second than you can with reading, because you have all the visuals and the words at once right there. And there's no faffing about it. It's just...
Well, also, I figure most people are going to have mods that are going to have JAI installed. And so I'll have the visuals, but I'm not going to waste your time, because you're going to use JAI. So I'm going to explain the things that don't require JAI, because JAI can basically cover your bases for most Minecraft mods.
Yeah. And there's extensions even for some, but there's some weird edge cases and things you don't know about, like if you have to build a 3D structure in the world, and you're not doing Way of Flowing Times mod. What's that one called?
There's a JAI expansion now that has
Blood Magic.
There's a JAI expansion that adds the structures now to the world.
That's cool.
Yeah,
but Blood Magic used to have that tome that could like show you the 3D structures.
It still has that. So what I was going to go on earlier with the editing of this video, I have watched the making of Fellowship of the Ring from all the appendices, and I've watched the making of Two Towers, and I'm currently watching the making of Return of the King. And I'm watching all of it, not like just the popular thing where it shows you about the actors. Like, it talks about John Howe and Alan Lee as well, and their contributions, and them finding the sets and the locations, and everything they did.
Yeah, they put the work in.
It's amazing, actually. So, do you know Rohan's capital, Edoras? So they found a location which they thought was perfect for. Basically, like, we have to have this location to film. It's in this windy valley on top of the mountains, which is in a nature reserve, which is for sheep to come to, and shepherds go there to have meetings. And so it's this historical space in New Zealand. So they begged the people who own it, can we film here? And they said, sure, you can have it for like 9 months. And so they built Edoras on top of it. They built roads to the location, and they actually built Edoras. Like, they built it completely. And then after they finished their filming, they took it apart and left the place perfectly. They removed the roads. But Peter Jackson's like, we need Edoras to be here. And it's not just like, oh, let's have a false front. No, they built actual buildings.
Yeah, and I think that comparison...
Like, they built buildings that may have been framed for 3 seconds, and it's just background.
That comparison, and also Tolkien, if you look at sections of like the appendices and sections of the Silmarillion and the moon charts involved, the moon is most prominent in The Hobbit when they have to get through the moon door thing. The moon cycle is kept track of for all thousands of years of history and everything he writes. Yeah. Whenever someone looks at the moon, it's in the right phase it should be based on the other moons. That's him sitting down and doing the work. That's not him writing by the seat of his... Now, I'm not saying you can't write by the seat of your pants and that you have to have this crazy world building. That's not it. It's that he cares about consistency and he cares about the details. He cares about the work. You look at... this is a great counterexample, I think. Liso, who does the Heroes of Might and Magic mod videos. Yeah. He always just goes to the same map, and he does set up the armies a bit so you can see what's going on, but he never talks. I think he's probably Polish or something, but he never talks. And he goes and he fights the creatures, and his videos are about twice as long as they need to be, and you don't really get an idea of what the mod is or how it works. Now, to be fair to Liso, he's doing a lot of... He owns a website that's doing a ton of stuff, right? So he's doing a lot of stuff. He doesn't have much time to be making these videos. But those videos aren't him knuckling down and doing the work, and I think those videos could be massively popular if he set them up a bit more, edited them a bit more, put some dialogue in to say what was going on. You know, that, like, I don't think he has the time for it, but if he did, I think they would be massively popular. Like, Norvo level videos type of thing,
It's just...
And the Lord of the Rings, same thing.
Yeah, you think about everything that went into those movies. It's insane. Actually insane. Like, I'm not saying, like, it took them 6 or 7 years, I think, in total, because they had so much pre-stuff before of just building the chainmail link by link. They had 2 guys who basically spent a good 3-4 years of their life only making chainmail. Yeah. They did so much work with, like, the stuntmen. Like, the amount of work the stuntmen went through, the ways they filmed things. Like, they built Helm's Deep. That's a set that they have a fight on in a quarry. And so... when the battering ram comes up to the door in Helm's Deep, they were told, the art department was told, we need to make this look like it's actually getting broken down by a battering ram, so make it strong. And the art department's like, those stuntmen are ridiculously strong, and we've seen the battering ram because we already made it. We know how intense that thing is. So we have to make the doors really strong. And so the stuntmen come up there with the battering ram, and they're pounding away at the door, and it's not breaking. And they're just working. And so they had to work hard to break down that door. So it actually looks like a proper siege of them smashing the door over and over again until it finally breaks. And it's like those sort of details. Or when the wall blew up, they filled, it's like we have one shot of this, and they filled it full of dynamite and then blew it up. And
yeah, or how they had the best people too, like John Howe, where he's not just the main artist for Lord of the Rings, he's an amateur blacksmith.
Yeah.
So when
and he has
they were asking like, what should the knives look like for the orcs? And he's like, I'll make one quickly and show you.
Well, so the two artists, they were on the same play together. So he and Alan Leaf were both on the plane. They got off, and he's coming through customs, and he has suits of armor packed in his bag and his swords, and he got those all through customs. And then he realized he's actually missing all his clothing, and he left that on the other side of customs. So he had to go back and basically beg them to let him go get his clothes. And it took him like an extra 2 hours to go and do that. But also the funny thing, so when they tried to hire the two of them, they, I think it was Al Lee, I can't remember which one, but they didn't really know where he lived. And so, but they knew how to, like, basically you can write someone's name and, like, ship stuff to them. And so they just mailed him a package of some movies that Peter Jackson did. And basically said, hey, we'd love to hire you, we're trying to make this movie. And then they tracked the UPS driver down, basically, to figure out his location. And so they're expecting, like, oh, he might phone us in a week or whatever. So after he received the package, he phoned them, I think it was, like, 4 or 6 hours later. And basically what he did is, we want you to do this project with us. So he watched both the movies the whole way through. And then I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so he just phoned and was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Which guy was this? Was Alan Lee?
I don't remember if it was Alan Lee or
John Howe.
John Howe, but that was the story for one of them. It was basically, he sat down, he watched both Peter Jackson's movies, like, yeah, I think this guy could do The Lord of the Rings. I'm an artist, I'll phone him.
He watched Peter Jackson's movies and had a good opinion of the guy?
Yeah.
Have you seen Peter Jackson's other movies?
I know
terrible.
they're horror movies.
They're not horror, they're gross out movies.
These were two of his horror movies.
Okay.
They weren't as gross, these were horror movies I did.
Okay, maybe they're better. But, he was a gross out producer. He did some really weird films. Like of course, the tomato eating scene is a reference to his old movies. But and then you compare that to like modern Marvel, right? Yeah. Where it's just sitting on your laurels. Like, we'll get some very famous people that people love, and we'll have some writers string together a series of scenes they think will look cool on the fly while we're filming. Like, we won't write it ahead of time. We'll just do it on the fly. And we'll hope it all works because movie magic will fix it in the end. That's how game developers have also become. Where there was did you hear about this? Basically, is what killed BioWare. They had this belief in BioWare magic.
Oh,
like they actually called it BioWare magic, where it's a mess, but then when the game's finally done, it's out and it's a masterpiece. Yeah. It's like, no, what you had like Shadow of Am or something, like the best game BioWare ever made, in my opinion. Yeah. Baldur's Gate 2. That was probably a mess, despite all the genius working on it. But in the end, because you had all those geniuses, it did work out well in the end. But when you have something like Anthem, you can't rely on the magic. The magic is actually just you not realizing how good your product actually was in the moment. Yeah. But it's not fixing things that don't work.
Well, even modern movies. So this is something that's so different about Lord of the Rings than modern movies. And even Peter Jackson suffered from it in his later films, partly because he actually didn't have enough time with the 3 Hobbit movies. Like, he didn't have nearly as much time as he did with Lord of the Rings.
You ever watch the behind the scenes on the Hobbits? Like, he didn't plan to make it these big... He wanted to make 1 or 2 movies.
He wanted to make 2 movies.
Yeah.
Actually, he wanted to make just 2 Lord of the Rings movies. This funny side tangent. So, they went to a studio, and they asked the studio, okay, we want to do this, and we want to do it in 2 movies. And the studio's like, no, you have to do it in 1. We'll only fund you for 1. It's like, no, we have to do it in 2. And so they went to this other guy, he's like impossible to read, and they said to him, okay, so we have this plan we want to do in 2 movies. He's like, you can't do that in 2 movies, and their heart just fell. You have to make it 3. There's 3 books, it's 3 movies.
Well, there's 1 book, technically.
Yeah, but the detail that I was getting to is with the green screen, so they'd have green screen in the background, but the background wouldn't be some composite of 3D models or a painting. It would be a physically made, scaled model that was interactable with. And it was the thing that was actually built, that was real in the world.
I think what that does, I don't think it's a magical well, it is magical, but it's not magical in the way that AI and CGI is wrong or evil, or it's not as pure or full of soul, right? Yeah. But I think what it does is Peter Jackson talks about how amazing it was. He could just request an object to be thrown into the scene and then it's there. But the problem with that is you have no sense of permanence with the scene. And I think that sense of permanence changes how you approach the scene and look at it. Well, you say, okay, everything that we put here is what we have to work with. Therefore, we're going to make it work.
So the Black Gate, for example, was a model. It was a physical model. And they wanted to film it being huge. And they wanted to do cinemax swoops over it. And so they had to have a macro lens to film it. Now, if you're filming a model with a macro lens, the model has to be detailed to high hell. And so this scale model is like I think it's a 12th of this. No, it wasn't a 12th. It was like a 24th of the scale or something, the Black Gate they had, because it was big. But still, they had to put all this little detail. They had to put work in it because they knew a macro lens was going to film it. And one of the things they found out is when it swung open, they had machine pistons in it. Because a macro lens filming it, the mechanism made it shudder a whole bunch. And so it looked like an earthquake was occurring. So they had to drive a giant steel rod through the whole thing to secure it in place. And so it would swing open and actually look.
You know what all that work prevents? Where you have to put in all the little detail and you have to secure the rod. It means you don't get to say, we'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
You say, we have one shot, we've got to do it right.
Yes.
And what that means, maybe you'll mess up, and that sucks. But what that means, because you can fix things in post, that's true. And it's fine. I think it's totally fine to fix things in post. But if you use that as a crutch, you say, oh, I'll just fix it in post. It's the exact same thing Jordan Peterson talked about when his daughter had, like, her joint falling apart, right? He said, never make it an excuse.
Yeah.
If you don't want to go to school today, that's fine. But don't say you can't go to school because you're hurt, you're injured, and you're like, don't make that an excuse, because the moment you do that once, then that'll always be your excuse. Well, it's because, oh, I'm falling apart and I can't do this. And I think that's the exact same thing with, we'll fix it in post. You become a little bit lazy. And I don't mean lazy in the term, breaks are important. You need rest. Yeah. I mean lazy in that you avoid, I don't think laziness is the opposite of working hard. I think laziness is avoiding unpleasantness. Yeah. So you're lazy if you don't pick up the poop your dog pooped on. Like, that's lazy. It's not hard work to pick up poop, but it's gross.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's how I'm redefining how people talk. Like, you got to do hard work. Because when I do hard work, like, for most of my life, when I'm people, you got to do hard work. So, okay, I'll do hard work. And then my body falls apart because I worked myself to the bone, literally. Yeah. Or like, stuff breaks. That's not what they're talking about. They're just talking about, just do the unpleasant bit.
Yeah.
And don't give yourself an excuse not to do the unpleasant bit. But you know, if you're feeling this aching pain that gets worse every time it's like, don't push through it. Take a break.
Yeah, so
hard work isn't good.
Yesterday, I was doing my job, and I had to take Benadryl because I went to a house with a cat. And as the Benadryl just sitting in my car in the sun, which I think about, like, having just medicine randomly sitting there and getting heated probably has bad environmental effects on medicine. Anyways, I do the whole assessment, and I get home, it's like, alright, I gotta do some other stuff today. It's like, man, I feel really tired. I felt like I got okay bound to sleep, but I'll just lie down on my bed for a bit. So I lie down on my bed for a bit, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's a bit cold here, I'm just resting, I don't want to fall asleep. I'll just rest for like a little bit. It's like, man, I'm really tired, it's cold in my room. So I get up and go out on the deck, and I lie down there. It's like, oh, it's really nice in the sun here. So I'll just listen to Lord of the Rings a little bit, lie here, just like recuperate, wait for the spell of tiredness to go away. Then I wake up with a sweet potato next to my head. And I'm like drooling slightly, my face is imprinted to the side of the deck, and I fell asleep for 20 minutes. And during that time, our dad came out onto the deck, made sure I wasn't dead, and he bought a sweet potato the night before that I asked him to get for me. So he just put it down there. And so I just woke up, and that's the only way I knew that he knew I was there. It's like, oh, sweet potato. And then I was like, why am I so tired? Like, this isn't natural. Like, I fell asleep. I went into the car. Extra strength Benadryl may cause drowsiness. But I think I did actually need to fall asleep on the deck there at that time.
Yeah.
Because, like, trying to force myself to do work while I'm like... Well,
here's... Whenever I'm editing, let's say... Like, I wanted that Here's My Magic video to come out about a week or two before it did. And actually, I wanted it to come out last year. Because I recorded it last May, I think. 14 months ago or whatever it was. 16 months ago.
Well, I started recording this Valley video 4 years ago.
But every time I was like, I need to get it out now. This is the perfect time to strike. This is when everyone's interested in Here's My Magic. Or, oh, I just got to get it out, right? Yeah. I reminded myself that 4 years ago, I had taken the weekend off I wouldn't have spent 4 years, dealing with... Now, I don't think it would have been that simple. I think that pain was a long time coming and it would have happened anyways. And I think a lot of it was actually due to an infection, like a streptococcus infection possibly. So I don't know if it would have actually mattered.
Yeah.
But, well, it would have mattered, but maybe not as much. But the point being, you think something's the perfect time, and if you don't ask that girl out right now, or you don't get that job done right now, you don't meet that deadline, then it's all over, right?
Yeah.
You don't know when the right time is. You don't know when the perfect time is. And it can take much longer to push through and rush something than it does to take a whole week off and then bang it out in an afternoon easily. Yeah. And you get a higher quality project a lot of time too. That doesn't mean, never do it, but it means if you're too tired to think, you can't focus, just don't try. You're with writing, I find this a lot actually, where it's, my hands are hurting and I can't think properly, but I need to get a page done. It's like, no, I'll just take... And maybe I'll take a week off, and then I write like 7 pages in a single sitting in like half an hour. I'm just like boom, 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 because I feel free and I feel light and yeah. So what was it? There's 3 things I want to talk about. So
I might take a bathroom break.
Okay, me too actually.
Switch the thing. No, you can't take it. I was going to turn the tables on you.